Uh, and Dr. King said, Jesse, we're going to dinner. You don't have a shirt and tie. I said, Doc, you don't need a tie. Prerequisites eating is to have an appetite, not a tie. He said, boy, you're crazy. About that time, Ben Branch, who I brought with me from Chicago, was a saxophonist, who had played for Dr. King the week before when Dr. King was in Chicago.
All right, Shalom. It's the brother Gamal Yala out of GMS ATL, giving all praises to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, also giving double honors to the apostles, and also Shalom to all the Akimet pushing out this truth and sincerity. All right, this is basically a video on an article that I found, basically saying that Jesse Jackson was in on King's death, right? He was juiced in with the FBI and responsible. I don't want to say he's not solely responsible, but he was, one of the key people that was in on Martin Luther King's death. All right, so let's go ahead and go into it. It's an article that I found on Slacker. It's an article that I found on beforeitsnews.com. All right, and it basically says MLK assassination witness point to the assassin. All right. Probable cause evidence shows that Jesse Jackson was the key covert FBI COINTELPRO operative responsible for April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King assassination. As first reported in UFO Digest, the role played by Jesse Jackson in slaying of Dr. Martin Luther King brought to light through the work of Dr. William Pepper, Dr. Gary Knoll, and other dedicated JFK assassination researchers is now public knowledge. All right. Well-known JFK assassination researcher Old Damagard says that probable cause evidence shows Jesse Jackson was the key covert police operative responsible for his assassination. All right. In the aftermath of the assassination, Jesse Jackson continued as a post-King U.S. black leader, including running as a 1984 to 88. Let me see. Jesse Jackson appears to have been one of an integrated covert assassination team that also included U.S. Army sharpshooters, CIA, FBI, and Memphis police that assassinated Dr. King on the balcony of Lorraine Motel. Jesse Jackson's principal role in the assassination, orders from the FBI to Dixie Mafia chief, resulted in Jesse Jackson going to the Lorraine Motel manager to change Dr. King's room from 306 to change his room to 306 on Lorraine balcony. All right. Old Demogard demonstrates that Jesse Jackson acted as a messenger between the head of Dixie Mafia, or the FBI, all right, and the Lorraine Motel management, and changing the Dr. King's ground floor room 206 to second floor balcony room 306, so that U.S. Army sharpshooters and other cable shooters would have a clear shot to Dr. King. All right. The order to change Dr. King's safe room for one with an exposed porch went to Jesse Jackson via a covert phone call from the Dixie Mafia's chief's wife to a third party. Right? So, as you see, man, all right, and this guy looks wicked as all hell right here. This guy looks like an owl. But anyway, basically, this guy, Jesse Jackson, who was Dr. King's right-hand man, right? All right, basically, he was working with some group, FBI group, or I guess subsidiary called Dixie Mafia, right? Dixie Mafia was hired by the FBI to take out Dr. King, right? So his role was to change Dr. King's whole motel room, right? So that was his role in the whole thing, because when you have a plan, all right, when you devise a plan, you have key players, right? You need people. If you're gonna take out someone, you gotta know someone that's close to them, right? Just like Judas Iscariot, right? The Most High, you know, when they were trying to take YAHAWASHI down, they needed someone that was close to him, right? To be that to pretty much be that person, right? Right? So this Jesse Jackson was basically Judas Iscariot. Now Dr. Martin Luther King, he was a wicked nigga, man. I mean, fuck him. I'm not bringing this out to shed light on Dr. King, because he was juiced in with the FBI as well, his damn self, right? I'm not bringing this out to say, because he deserves his death anyway, right? But I'm really more so bringing this thing out so that you see that all your leaders are, all the so-called black leaders, all right, they're set up by Esau, and they're hired by Esau, right, to pretty much keep you niggas blind, man. Keep you niggas from waking up to the fact that you're Israelites. Right? So, reading on, it has come to light that in defiance of Dr. Martin Luther King's dress code for the Memphis protest activities as planned, Jesse Jackson publicly refused Dr. King's order to wear a necktie, which had been designated as a secret U.S. Army sharpshooter target code. So, reading on, my computer's kind of bugging out. Slack you. Alright. According to Demigard, Jesse Jackson, who acted as a national black leader since his assassination, acted out a psyops immediately following Dr. King's assassination, whereby Jackson, according to Andrew Young, dipped his hand in Dr. King's blood on the balcony and smeared it on his pullover, creating a false meme that Jesse Jackson had been the last to hold Dr. King in his arms, which was patently false according to all eyewitnesses. Reading on, it says, Jackson also stayed behind him at the Lorraine Motel after all members of Dr. King's entourage departed for St. Joseph's Hotel, where the stricken Dr. King was taken. Alright. And became the de facto spokesperson for the world and national media for the King organization, which in fact prompted Jesse Jackson to a new national and international prominence. Right, so basically what this looks like is and this is him standing next to Obama, right? But basically what this is getting at is that Dr. King was Jesse Jackson's sacrifice, right? Because the FBI probably, Dr. King probably started to buck up against them, or not taking orders, or he probably just got tired of being a puppet, and Jesse Jackson probably stepped in and they saw him as a better fit to be, you niggas leader, right? Because Jesse Jackson, he probably, he was probably with the shits, man. He probably didn't give a damn. Probably listened to everything they said. So, as you see, man, your leaders are all these black leaders, so-called black leaders. All right, they're all juiced in, and they're all working towards the destruction of Israel. You so-called Negroes, you so-called blacks, Negro, Sloppy, you so-called blacks, um, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? So moving on, and I wanted to touch on the fact that he was told, all right, that's why I brought out the video in the beginning, is because they had orders from the FBI, or Jesse Jackson had orders from the FBI to not wear a necktie, right? And because they were told, the shooters, listen to this, the U.S. Army sharpshooters and shooters involved in the assassination had been issued orders to only shoot people wearing ties, right? This refusal by Jesse Jackson to wear a tie immediately prior to the assassination shows probable cause implicating Jackson as part of the assassination team and adhering to its secret code of no ties, right? So, as you see, he knew not to wear a tie. Dr. King probably went back and forth with him. He already said the dialogue. He said Dr. King told him to wear a tie, and he said, "Nah, you don't need a tie to eat." And then Dr. King responded and said, "Boy, you crazy." Right? We can go back to it. It's lucky if my computer's a little slow.
To disrupt the march. We're talking about how to keep marching because we're on our way to Washington.
Okay, Salaki, I'm going to go back a little bit because he actually mentions the FBI.
He was one of peace and harmony. Oh,
who marched along Dr. Martin Luther King, Charles Cabbage, and Kobe Smith, both with the Black Power group, the Invaders, who also marched with King. As we turn now to Jesse Jackson, Charles Cabbage was driving away from the hotel. Reverend Jesse Jackson was one of Dr. King's aides. He was at the Lorraine Motel. He came to Memphis this weekend, and I asked him about April 4th, 1968.
The week before, when he had marched, the FBI had put in some instigators, as it were, to disrupt the march to prove he no longer had.
All right, so as you see right off the bat, he started talking about the FBI. He said the week before, the FBI had put in pretty much agents to disrupt their march, right? So right off the bat, you see he's juiced in with the FBI.
He couldn't control his demonstration. That was a setup. We kind of knew that those guys were set up to disrupt the march.
All right, he said they knew those guys were set up to disrupt the march. All right, reading on.
To keep marching because we were on our way to Washington. Maybe engaged in civil disobedience, demanding a job and income for every American. He pulled together blacks and Appalachian whites and Jews and Native Americans and Latinos on the idea that there should be a floor beneath which no American would fall. We were on our way to Washington. And that day, I spent much of the day, in addition to being with him, over in the little carousel restaurant singing, because our group was going to perform that night, a band we brought from Chicago. I was like singing, not like singing. And so coming across the courtyard, Reverend Kyles had just left the room. And Dr. King said, "Jesse, we're going to dinner. You don't have a shirt and tie." I said, "Doc, you don't need a tie. A prerequisite eating is to have an appetite, not a tie." He said, "Boy, you're crazy." About that time, Ben Branchford I brought with me from Chicago was a saxophonist who had played for Dr. King the week before.
All right, so you see, he said, the prerequisite to eating is to have an appetite, not a tie. See? But see the hypocrite? Look, this guy's wearing a tie right now. You see that? So, as you see, man, you know, he knew not to wear that tie. Right? He knew because he was on the inside. He was one of the inside guys plotting on Martin Luther King's death. Right? Now, I just want to go back to, let me see if I have any more. Okay, here we go. One thing real quick. Jackson became involved in the SCLC leadership disputes following the assassination. When King was shot, Jackson was in the parking lot one floor below. Jackson told reporters that he was the last to speak to King and that King died in his arms. Right? An account that several King aides disputed. Alright? So, a lot of people are disputing the fact that he was the last to die in his arms. And I'm actually looking up. Okay, so as you see, he's a snake, man. Because he was the last, supposedly the last to see Dr. King, right? And then you see it mentions that article that I brought up before. It mentioned that he had smeared Dr. King's blood on his shirt. Now here's a little bit more detail on that. It says 2 obscure photographs taken moments after the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Reverend Jesse Jackson was close enough to King to have had his shirt stained by King's blood. All right. Reading on, it says, all right, so there was a big, you know, controversy over him having the blood. All right, it says, while many King associates stayed with his body as it traveled from Memphis to Atlanta, Jackson, with a bloody shirt, appeared before several media outlets declaring that he was the last to talk with King, that he cradled his head after the shot. Right? So he was wearing the bloody shirt after he was still wearing the bloody shirt at, you know, a day or days after the shooting. Why would you, you know, and that just goes to show that he was a sacrifice, because, you know, sacrifices, they deal with blood. He was probably, you know, and that's symbolic too, because he has his blood, you know, Dr. King's blood is on his hands, right? That's very symbolic through the spirit. See? But anyway, I was just bringing that out. I mean, fuck Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, he was a puppet and he deserved to have died. And fuck Reverend Jesse Jackson, man, because he was a puppet as well. And he's going to die. But I wanted to bring this out because it just goes to show you, you know, the leaders today. And Jesse Jackson is one of the biggest leaders, biggest black leaders in today's time, because he had close connections to King, right? He's one of the main people that's speaking on Black Lives Matter. He's one of the main people that's speaking on black issues. He's the main people that so-called black people look up to or look to for answers, right? But he's a murderer, right? And he's an insider, right? He's working with Esau. And that just goes to show you that Esau sets up everything. Esau sets up these leaders, right? Now, I got a couple precepts. that I'm going to end this video with. This is Jeremiah 28:8. The prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known. So Martin Luther King, he was speaking of peace, right? That's what he was speaking of. He was speaking of basically, you know, coming to grips or holding hands with the so-called white man and being equality. That's what the whole civil rights movement was about, was being equal to the white man, right? But you niggas want to be equal to the white man. That's why you got these Black Lives Matter. Y'all just want to be left alone. Basically, the whole Black Lives Matter thing, the whole point of it is to stop killing black people, right? But Esau's your enemy. He's going to keep killing you, man. Now, it says the prophet which prophesieth of peace, and that's what so-called Dr. Martin Luther King prophesied of, peace, right? All right, when the words of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known. So he's not no prophet. Why? Because that didn't come to pass. We haven't, you know, 50 years later after King's death, 60, almost 70 years later after King's death, right? There's still, what, racial tensions in America. Esau is still the enemy of you so-called blacks, right? This is Shalaka. I have another one. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. Alright. This is Deuteronomy 17. I don't think that's the right one. Okay, I got it. So, alright, it's Deuteronomy 13:1. If there arise you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, which giveth thee a sign or wonder. And what did Dr. King, what did he say? What was his most famous speech? I have a dream, right? A dreamer of dreams, right? And the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. So, and it says, thou shalt not hearken unto the words of the prophet or that dreamer of dreams, right? Because basically, Dr. King, he first of all, I brought out the fact that he was a dreamer of dreams, right? And it says, whereof he spake, let us go after other gods and to serve them, right? Because Dr. King, he wasn't going after the Most High YAHAWASHI. All right, the Most High wasn't dealing with him. The Most High didn't send him, right? So he's pretty much leading you astray, which is synonymous with going after other gods. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, right? For the Lord your God proveth you to know whether ye love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Right? Got one more. This is Jeremiah 58:2. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways. So the black community has always had, or I should say all you Jakes, you so-called blacks, Negroes, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you all seek the Lord. You all seek the Lord daily, and you delight to know his ways, right? Through churches, all right, through prayer, all right. As a nation that did righteousness and forsook not the ordinance of their God, They ask of me ordinances of justice. They take delight in approaching to God. Right? So they delight to know the ways, but they're far from the Lord. I'm roughly paraphrasing another precept. But, you know, Jake has been constantly catching hell in America, and they haven't had any answers. The civil rights, your Jesse Jacksons, your Martin Luther Kings, your what's that dude? Farrakhan's, right? They don't have the answers, because niggas are still getting killed. If they had the answers, then niggas would quit being killed. Your so-called rappers, that are now what do you call it? Activists, right? You got these rappers that are speaking out, all right, to the black community, right? None of them have the answers, right? But that's what you got to do, is turn to the Lord, man. That's what you guys aren't doing. You're trying to get carnal. You're trying to go to gun ranges, all right? You're trying to boycott. You're trying every approach to find equality in America or be left alone in America, other than dealing with the Most High, right? Other than repenting of your sins and coming to the Most High in sincerity, right? Because you're really just, you know, into a bunch of foolishness, man. And that's why you niggas gotta go, right? But that's pretty much it on that. And I hope you brothers were edified, all right? And also, all praise to Yahweh, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Shalom.